Today I'm going to get started on a project that's probably going to take me a little bit of time to do, maybe a couple weeks. I'm going to try to build something. I got a visual in my head. You'll see, you probably know by the description by the time this video comes out, but at this very moment as I get started, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to turn out, but the basis, the core of it is going to be like butcher block. So you see all this scrap wood I got down here. I'm going to start cutting a bunch of strips. So I had a vision in my head of what I wanted to do. So I began with all my scrap wood, different textures, different types of wood, different thicknesses of wood, and just cut 2-inch strips over and over until I had enough that I started piecing them back together to create a platform. I wasn't gluing them yet, but I was laying them out. But hopefully you're starting to see what my brainchild is here. I'm just past this. This is only a foot long because I'm going to use my wood planer. I'm going to attempt to plane this down. Obviously it's going to be completely uneven, so it's going to have to take a whole bunch of passes, but I just wanted to piece together something. This is where I've been playing around with resin. I know that there's a big old hole there. There's some gaps all over the place. Of course, with using so much glue and for so many pieces, you got to move fast. So that's why it was important to lay this all out first, and then I could just grab a piece at a time, re-glue it, and move on. Okay guys, I'm kind of nervous to see if this is going to hold or not. All I can do is leave it clamped together and wait. I was looking and I really am kind of nervous about this piece. It's just kind of sitting in there. Maybe it'll hold, but we'll find out. If not, that's going to be where my line is to cut things off, I guess, because that is the hard part. Obviously this end's not done. I'm just going to cut off completely straight edge on this thing. So it's early the next morning, and I'm going to go ahead and try and take this off and just see how this worked out. Of course, like with my flags, it's kind of stuck on there. There we go. Okay, so sweet. We have one solid piece for the moment. Alright guys, so this is what my first piece looks like. It's obviously been glued together. I pried it off, and it almost looks pretty cool with the different layers and textures to it right now. It's not what I have in mind for this project as an end result, so I'm going to plane it down, but I might do another project similar to this someday where I don't, and like we literally have different levels of wood in here. So I'm really... This sped up time lapse does not represent well how many passes and how much time I spent planing this down. Alright, so I think I might be pushing the limits of my wood planer a little bit. You may have noticed a few minutes ago it was starting to smoke a little. It seems like it's laboring through, and it's kind of giving me some waves in the cuts. The blades may just be getting hot. The motor itself might be getting hot. I was trying to be subtle with my lowering it, but maybe with the different levels of the wood, it's starting to like catch spots where it's, you know, getting caught up a lot more. I don't know. But so I'm just gonna let it rest. I need to clean up some of the wood, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe the sawdust is gunking up and everything in there. But I'm gonna give it a rest. I'm gonna let it go again in a little while. But you know, this piece is a lot more even now than it was. I still want to get a little more out of it, but this excites me, guys. I don't know about you. That's, of course, our backside. I'll probably run it just a couple times on the backside just to smooth it out a little when we're all said and done. But I'm getting the effects I wanted. And I had pieces that were, you know, a 1/4 inch taller than others. And it's taking a whole bunch of passes. And I'm going to have to continue to do it. We still got a good gap there. I'd like to get it where the whole thing is smooth. But we'll have to wait and see. I may need to replace the blades. I might be overworking them, but I'm going to let it rest. So I gave my planer a little bit of a rest, and then I just kept at it, just kept making pass after pass. I've probably made, I don't even know, 50 passes through it with this. It's not level all the way down to the lowest low point, but this thing's pretty darn smooth. I just kept making those passes and not lowering it each time, but if it would keep taking it as it was, you know, I didn't want to like overwork the blades, didn't want to press down too hard. There were times I did, and I tried to correct that by just letting it keep going at an easier pace and shaving off just a light layer to get back to where I might have dug in a little too much. So piece number one is looking pretty good. I did a couple passes on the back side of it just to smooth it out a little bit, but I mean it's never going to be perfect. Like there'd be nothing left if I got both sides perfect. Don't really need to get the back side. So we're good with this board. I should explain that it was my original intent to make this sign twice as big, and after planing two of them, glue them together. Then I realized I didn't really need to do that. It wasn't necessary. So the other piece is getting used for my next project, which you'll see in the next video. Alright guys, so this logo is not going to end up being exactly what I wanted out of it. Even though I felt like the bit was not very far beneath the platform, I guess because you're mounted here and then you're elevated what you're cutting in, it's pretty deep. I didn't want it that deep, I wanted it shallow. And again, I'm having the exact same scenario as with the camper. Like, here's what I was trying to mimic, and it's like downsized. It's not the same dimensions. So if you're looking closely, I had actually made that first cut on the back side, and I didn't even realize it at the time. It took me a minute off camera, and I realized I had cut the wrong side, which was good because it didn't turn out great. The proportions, that situation still continues to be a problem with the Pantograph. However, the depth problem with it going deeper than I wanted was because I had forgotten to adjust the bolts that the feet of this machine sits on. So if you look where the video is right now, the 2 feet on the top and bottom, you just adjust the height of those, and that will change up your depth of your cut you make. It's not perfect, but I'm not perfect. That'll do. So I don't know if this is going to work or not, but my next step is I'm going to fill from the top resin. I'm going to backfill this area here, some of these cracks, and where my new emblem, where the new logo that I'm putting on this item is at. And my plan is to use this handy wrap, this kitchen plastic wrap. I'm hoping that it'll seal it off and the resin will be thick enough that it'll stay where it's at. I also don't know if that means that I'm going to really have a hard time and if this is going to be stuck in it or if I'll be able to like tear it off. I don't know what's going to happen, guys. We're just going to find out. So I'd first like to apologize for the audio issues I've had throughout this video. I recently got a new microphone and I'm just getting used to the idea that if it's not pointed directly at me, it's really not picking up sound well. But moving on to what I'm actually doing here, I started mixing up some resin. Of course, it's a 1-to-1 mixture, and you're not supposed to do it with a power tool, but I didn't want to stand there forever, so I decided to try with a very low speed. Alright guys, so yes, I was using this paint mixer with my drill on the lowest setting, and I've been using it for about 8 minutes now rather than 12 minutes by hand. It was very, very cloudy. There was that, and I think by hand you don't end up with it being as cloudy. But then I mixed in an entire bottle here of this liquid dye that I was like, I wanted, you know, some color to it anyways. So I don't think I'm going to be able to see through it regardless, even though it would be very cloudy if I wanted to see through the resin. I think that's what I'm going to end up with today. So now I just need to figure out how to do this without making a big mess. Right about now would have been a good time to have a funnel, which of course I didn't. I did find that using sticks or pieces of wood, flat surfaces, to push the resin into the gaps I was trying to fill was helpful, but it did still leave a little bit on the surface. Now, if you watch videos of people that really know what they're doing using resin, yeah, you usually see them have a completely sealed off area, you know, even like to the matter of caulking corners and caulking edges. But I really guess I wanted to see what I could get away with. Alright, that I'm okay with right now. Okay guys, so I'm going to leave this for a few days. My assessment so far of how this is going to work out for me. Where I used my router for the logo, I think that's going to work out pretty good. You know, that didn't seep through. There's nowhere for it to go. It's sitting there. It is fairly thick, and it's gonna work, it seems. As far as I was hoping with this item and how it would fill in the cracks, I mean, you can see that it's resting down in there. We've got a little bit that's sitting on this corner. It's pretty sloppy looking right now. It just runs. It's got too many places to run away to. Maybe this would be a first good layer. Maybe I should have used a clear and then the color that I wanted to. Like maybe if I would have done this, it's coating the bottom and this whole thing will be a unified surface underneath it now. And then if I came back in a week, if I had a long time for this project, I could probably put another layer. But I don't have that time, and I just don't think it's working out. But nonetheless, I think we're going to be all right as far as what we got going on. I do believe I'm going to have to sand again. I was using baby wipes like I've used for the glue. It was getting it up, but what I started to get was it really started to tear them up and put them on the surface, and it was kind of making a big mess. So over here I was using these wood blocks to just pull as much of the resin as I could and fill in the holes. So we're just going to have to come back to this in a few days and see how it looks. Okay guys, so I've left this alone for a couple days with the resin. Our little logo here I think turned out decent. It did drain some in there, probably from that crack, but it's decent. This side did not take. The saran wrap, to answer the question, totally did not work. So this is what we got going on. So now you guys know that if you're going to work with some resin, saran wrap does not work because you saw it on the internet. So I would say that I'm already learning that if I'm going to goof around and experiment with resin, think about the consequences, because this is tricky here. I'm almost tempted to try and run this through the wood planer. Okay, that's a mess. I might mess with it more later. But let's try to sand this and see if we can clean this side up a little bit. So I'm debating in this one. I feel like I got three options. Put some more resin on here with another color, dye it, and coat the entire, just a light coat on the entire surface area. And I don't know how that'll react over here. I was planning on coating this with the polyurethane anyways, doing that. And again, I don't know how that's going to react here. Like, I don't know if it's just going to accentuate this and it's going to look sloppy or not. I'm really worried about that. Or just continue to sand it and sand it and sand it. But I don't know that this is going away. You know, I mean, that's a decent, this side wasn't that bad. It was wiped off decent and it's still got that stain to it. Like, I feel like that's not going away. Let me try this a little bit longer. So the sanding of the surface actually on video seems to have worked pretty good. When I was looking at it in real life, it was a little more noticeable still, but nonetheless, you can see a drastic change from when I began sanding to when I finished. Now the sanding of the hardened resin on the backside didn't work at all, not in the least. So I decided I still was going to deal with that later, but I was going to try to fill in those holes again. So I got out some more resin, dyed it, and filled in those couple large holes. I might just run this through the wood planer after it's all said and done. I don't know, guys. I'll come up with that answer as I go, but let me double check. Everything looks like it's good and covered on this side as far as a couple of these holes. I didn't think this before. I'm really risking it because of how we see the saran wrap works, but that tape, there's no reason it should go anywhere. So I'm going to begin over here, and I'm going to try to fill this in. In case you guys missed it, I decided to use duct tape on the front side and seal off the little holes that were going all the way through as good as I could. Okay, guys. It's been 14 hours, not 24. Got 10 more hours before this is completely cured. It's still got a little tackiness to it, and you could kind of feel it push if you give it a little bit of pressure, but it should be solidifying at this point. I have no idea what we're going to get here. I just started to lift this, and I want to have it on camera, though. And I will say, when I started to lift it, one thing is something stuck to this plastic because it broke it. So we're going to flip this over, and let's see what we have on this surface. And I already see, well, I'm kind of concerned because I already see that we had leaks. So I haven't mastered this resin yet. Like, well, that one seemed to do decent. And at least I'm coming back to mess with this while it's, you know, not, once it's dry, it might as well be glass on there, or a hard plastic. I mean, it's resin, you know what resin is. But right now, this is like a very thick, gummy, so it has some like stop to it. I don't know if you want to call it that, but like some surface area. It's not a liquid anymore, but it's still, I could still get it off, you know. That one worked okay. That, see that, I don't know if it's just a matter of the gaps in some of the other wood, but let me bring you guys in closer. This was our biggest hole in the whole thing. So, our surface is still, I'm disappointed it's not working perfect, but I'm relieved because I haven't ruined this. The front does not look like this. That would be a problem. This I can still work with, is what I'm thinking. Let me work on this a little bit. Let me address it. You know what I'm going to do first? I'm going to put on some safety glasses. I'm going to put on a mask because I don't know how safe it is. And I'm going to use my wood planer and just, I mean, it's a wood planer. It chops through wood. Hopefully, this resin shouldn't ruin it, right? Man, I hope not. We'll see. I kind of need new blades anyway, so if it messes up my blades, I'm already thinking about buying new ones. I've already replaced them once a couple years ago, so. All right, so let's clean up the back a little bit, because we can't give this as a gift to somebody like looking like this. So the very first problem I ran into was not about the hardened resin on the backside, but rather the liquefied the still drying, sticky, tacky resin that was on the front side. When I tried to run this through the planer, it got stuck to it, left basically a residue on the deck, and just didn't want to move. New strategy. We're going to try to sand this a little bit and get rid of some of the tackiness to it. Sanding did not work because it took about 5 seconds, and right here that sandpaper just ripped right off of my palm sander. Alright, I'm going to use some of this contractor solvent, and I'm just going to try to take some of this resin up that's on this side. You know, there's some kind of saying that's something along the lines of like, it's not about how good the contractor is or the carpenter or the woods worker or whatever. It's about how good he can hide his mistakes. Well, for this channel, I'm not very good at hiding them, because that's kind of what I do, is show you guys my mistakes. But yeah, there's a lot of them. There's always a lot of them. This whole project isn't necessarily becoming about what I'm building. It seems like the whole thing's about me learning about how to use resin. And right now that's a slow going, not very good learning, is it? If I can just get this surface to not be so, actually that's not that sticky now on that side. This side I'm sure still is. That's my primary goal at the moment. It's like I try to figure out like one step at a time. Right now that step is like, alright, I want to plane the other side. Hoping to plane off that resin. I'm hoping it'll come off. So for now, my step is like, the problem with doing that was, oh, dang it, quit doing that, was that this side was really sticky. So now I'm like, all right, let me try to make it not as sticky. Then I'll go back and I'll try to plane it again, and I'll see if that works. It doesn't feel as sticky to me. All right, let's try this again. That's not working very good. I'm actually going to try to send a piece of wood through my planer just to clean it up for the minute. See how that goes. But I think I'm going to try a chisel again. I don't know. I'm probably going to time lapse you guys just because I don't have this figured out. So I might be goofing around for a while on this. So the chisel ended up really being the only thing that did work. And it was far more tedious than I wanted it to be. And there were multiple occasions where I started chiseling and digging down into the wood and just taking that right with the resin. So the whole surface area was pretty much scraped away. Not a lot of fun. I finally got rid of most of that resin with that wood chisel. So at that point I did go back to the wood planer and sent this through multiple passes on both sides to clean up the tacky resin, to clean up the tiny little chunks that were left over of resin, and finally I got it to a condition I was okay with. So I'm going to build the feet for this, and I'm going to polyurethane it. So I took this 1x4 and I measured 1 foot and 2 foot. So I'm going to do 1 foot. They're going to be pretty simple, but that's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to cut these. You guys don't need to see me for that. Now I have my 1 foot long pieces. Of course, I'm going to round off the edges a little bit. I always just like using items. Paint can's perfect here. When I do that, you know, I usually get it like to the center part here. I've got it just to the edge, and then the same for up here. So that's where I know how to be consistent with my curvature. And there we go. One tool I definitely hope to someday have is a scroll saw. Be able to make cuts like this a lot cleaner, a lot smoother and more detailed. But for today, the jigsaw works. Next up, another one of my favorite tools, my router. Let's round off both edges. I haven't done that before. Even though the inside one would be fine, it'll look better, I think, if we round off both edges. So let's do that. Alrighty, so that looks a lot better than a 1x4 piece of wood. I mean, it's still not perfect, but you know, it starts to look like a little form of something. Alright, so of course I want to figure out where my midpoint is. It's going to be 6 inches. Put a super light mark on it. Put a nice little bead of wood glue on there. Turn that air compressor up. Time to polyurethane. If you guys haven't noticed, if you follow my channel, I'm a real big fan of clear polyurethane. So that's what I use next here. Alright guys, we have our first coat of polyurethane on there. I know it's darker, it kind of accents and highlights stuff to me. I'm okay with it. You do see a couple burn marks, but I think it kind of gives it a rustic flair and character. Some of the tacky spots where the resin had come through, I was really worried about, and at least right now I'm not really noticing them. So we'll see what this looks like once it dries. But we're going to leave it alone now. Okay, guys, so here's what the final product looks like. Again, this is just a sign meant to stand up on its own. It has a logo in it for somebody that is close to me. Definitely not perfect. I just like this rustic look of stuff. I kind of like it, but I definitely would say it's been a learning experience with resin. There were some challenges with this one for sure. In the end, all in all, I'm happy with it. It's not quite to the level I'd hoped I'd be able to get to on my first go, but again, each one of these times it's a learning process. So I applied a couple coats of polyurethane to it, and that's where we're at. You know, some noteworthy spots is we got resin that did fill in there. I used orange, and maybe that was a mistake. It kind of blended with the wood. Obviously, we do see some of the green that we used in other places. Kind of gave a little bit of more character, I guess you could say. Our logo using my Pantograph. We're still getting things smaller than what we did. Anyways, that's going to do it for today, guys. Let me know what you thought. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you.